is so exciting. It's about 3 years of work on this, so good to finally see it coming to life. Thank you for starting the recording, David. Right, so let's give people another minute and then we can start off. Okay, I think we can probably start. David is going to add anyone else that comes in later on. Again, many thanks for coming in. Please mute yourselves and remove your camera if you do not want to be included in the recording. So I'm just going to give you a very quick overview of what we're going to do today. We're hoping it's not going to last the whole hour, but that would probably depend on the conversations that we get out of this. So we're going to start off with just giving you a bit of an introduction to connecting nature. It's going to be quite short, about 5 minutes, just so that you see what the underlying project has been. We're also going to speak about the background of CoImpact and why we went ahead with what you're going to see today. And then we're going to proceed with a short demonstration of how the tool actually works and what you can get out of it. So we're hoping this is going to take less than about half an hour, and then we're going to continue with getting some questions from yourselves and having a discussion. So this is how today is going to go. So I'm just going to pass on to Jillian, who's going to give you a bit of an introduction into connecting nature.
Hi everyone, I'm Julian Dick. I'm Spatial Planning Manager, Research and Development at Glasgow City Council within the Development Plan Group. And for the last 5 years, we've been one of the 3 frontrunner cities in the Connecting Nature project. So that was a project funded under Horizon 2020 to look at nature-based solutions. Another 8 cities were the followers, and there was a number of academics involved in that. We used our open space strategy as our exemplar, and we're looking at how we embedded nature-based solutions into policy from the top down as well as the bottom up. Poznan in Poland was another one of the front runner cities, and they were looking at the greening the grey, so bringing green into play areas and play spaces within schools, etc. There's small interventions. And Genk, G-E-N-K, Genk in Belgium were the other front runner city, and they were looking at how you used an old water area that was culverted and brought that into the Steamer Valley is a new water park on the edge of Genk. So we were looking at different scales. As part of that project and the work that we were doing with our academic partners, there was a number of work programs, and work package 1 was about impact assessment. So how do you measure and how do you know that what you're delivering is actually delivering on what you say you do? And Glasgow, like a lot of people, when we went funding bids, we said something we would do, and when we were doing our development plan, we'd do a monitoring report right at the start that would say, here's where we are, this is what we need to do, this is what we're going to go and deliver. We would then ignore all the data and evidence we got, and we'd go and deliver what we said we would deliver. And then at the end, we'd have to monitor, well, did you deliver on what you said you would deliver? And we'd go, well, what did we measure 5 years ago? And what do we need to measure now? And it all became a really big bit of work. And what we were trying to work with the University of A Coruña, because Glasgow was one of the leads, was what do we need to measure on health and well-being, social cohesion, environment, economic and biodiversity, because that's the things that the nature-based solutions say they should be delivering on and doing no harm to, all at the same time. And what outcomes do we want for this, and how are we going to measure them? So there was a whole lot of work done around Europe, not only with our project, but with other sister projects, to try and identify those outcomes and then how you were measuring them. And a little bit of the work that we did in Glasgow was try and find that data already. So rather than go, we can't measure this because we don't know if we're measuring it at the minute, We looked around what Glasgow was capturing data on. We went and talked to colleagues in SEPA, Nature Scot, Public Health Scotland, the local universities, and said, we think we need to measure this. Are you collecting data on that? So we've kind of done the route map for that. And then all of that is fed into some of this kind of work that's been going on in here. The other work packages have looked at the financing, the stewardship. So it's really easy to get money for planning and delivery, but how do we find funding for the long-term maintenance of some of this stuff? How do we create multifunctional spaces? So how do you balance up the demand between somebody wanting to use a space for flood alleviation, somebody else wanting to get the power out of it, and somebody else wanting to use it for the health and well-being benefits, not only for the human population, but also for the habitats and plants. I'll kind of stop there and I'll pass back to Rania.
Perfect. Thank you, Jillian. So that was a quick introduction to connecting nature and I guess work package 1, which is what CoImpact has come out of. So I'm just going to pass on to David to very quickly explain the background behind CoImpact. As you will notice, we won't be doing any proper presentations today. We're trying not to bore you to death. So hopefully this kind of more personable approach will work better. But David, please come on and tell us about the background of CoImpact, please.
Okay, yes, many thanks, Rania and Jillian, for the introduction on urban interventions and connecting nature. I'm very happy to be here today and to see many people in the meeting. And yes, I will be very quick in order to start with the tool, which is the important today. But I just want to briefly explain why we have created CoImpact. Because as Jillian explained it, during the project, we have experienced a learning process when it comes to being aware of the best ways of advise cities in how to prepare an impact assessment plan. And all of us, the cities, the people, the academic people, and other institutions have devoted a lot of effort trying to show why it is essential to evaluate and to know if the interventions have worked or not. But during connecting nature, it has been very, very difficult to collect evidence of the interventions, and not only because of finding available data, but also because the cities needed to design the plans to evaluate whether the interventions have been successful or not. So all the cities had to create a plan. All the cities knew very good the objectives they wanted to achieve. For example, I want to improve biodiversity, I want to reduce air temperature, I want to improve physical activity residents. However, it was difficult to choose the indicators because it requires an experience and it required a lot of time. So we have followed a structured process in connecting nature, first thinking about the benefits of the intervention, and then thinking how can I measure those benefits. And that's the base for creating the evaluation plans, and that is what CoImpact does. So that's why we decided to create CoImpact. So this process will be simpler, more intuitive, and above all, open to all cities, not only for the connecting nature ones, but also to not cities, local municipalities, organizations, or communities that want to design a good evaluation plan to check if the interventions that they are going to do were successful or not. So this is just the explanation of why we have created CoImpact. It is basically to make things easier. So we try to do so, and I hope that we have achieved that. So I'm just now going to give the way to Rani again, who is going to explain us how CoImpact works and how it can be easily used.
Perfect. Thank you, David, for that great explanation. Yeah, I guess as David said, we were kind of testing, trialing the whole indicators and impact assessment process in Glasgow. And we noticed that things were simply not working the way that things were set up previously. So let's hope that this is going to be useful for more of you as well. So I'm just going to start this demonstration. So as you can see, this is the actual website that we have created for CoImpact. I'm going to give you the link for accessing this. This is a non-commercial program. It has been created as open source. We will be publishing the code for this on GitHub, so that anyone that would like to maybe develop this further for your own needs can do so, as long as, of course, you speak to us first to make sure that we're happy with what you will be doing. However, we're kind of setting up some intellectual property legal things at the moment, but we're hoping this will be done soon, so we'll make sure we'll let you know when that is done. So as you can see here, you've got a bit of a kind of blurb about what we've just explained, what's the purpose of CoImpact. And then I'm just quickly going to show you this page here is just the about page that's just giving you a bit more information about CoImpact and connecting nature. I'll leave you to look at that yourselves whenever you want to. And this is a very useful bit that's about the frequently asked questions. It's things about how CoImpact works, what is an indicator, what is the difference between core and feature indicators, which we're going to go through today. Anyway, what you're getting out of it, and in case, like I said before, in case you're interested in pursuing this further, developing it further, how you can get in touch with us to try and get that done. Just very quickly to explain as well, the sign-in page, I will show you during the demonstration of the tool. It is not somewhere that you can sign in. We're not taking any personal information as part of this. This is simply for us to be able to see which areas of the world the tool is being used for. So it's nothing to worry about at all. So I'm just going to go back to the start then, and I'm going to start the tool just so that I can show you. Like I said before, the tool is not for commercial purposes, and as such, you would need to confirm that you will not be using this tool for any sort of money-making reasons. And so once you have confirmed that, you're welcome to use the tool. So like David mentioned before, we decided to go ahead with this kind of benefit or goals way of looking at things, because in Glasgow, all our really helpful academic partners across Europe had provided us with these really long spreadsheets full of indicators, and we were kind of told, you know, this is what you need to be able to assess the impact that your project is having on communities, so health and well-being, social cohesion, environmental and economic. And it was quite difficult to, you know, source the data, and then try to do the analysis. And it was only maybe a couple of years later that we realized that some of these indicators were actually not useful for what we were doing, but they would be for maybe other cities or other projects. So that's when we realized that it would be great to approach it from a different perspective. And like David was saying, to look at what we want to achieve as part of our project, and then tailor the kind of data collection analysis that we need to do based on what we actually want to achieve from the project. So it starts off with the environmental benefits. So again, this is kind of the goals. We named them benefits, but it's the kind of thing that you want to achieve. So because the environmental ones were quite a lot, they are divided between different kind of subtopics. So you've got climate resilience, water management, you've got green space management as well. I'm not going to bore you and go through all of these because you can just do this in your own time. But basically, you need to just think what you want to achieve, and then just select the benefits that you think are applicable to your project. So I always say that I always give the example of a food growing space, a food growing garden, and looking at what we want to achieve through that. So say that in terms of environmental, we want to reduce flood risk, because our project is within an area that's got quite a lot of surface water and is getting, you know, frequently flooded. We also want to, in terms of green space management, say that we want to increase ecosystem service provision. And we want to, in this case, because we're creating a community garden, we want to increase the number of community gardens in the city. Again, this is an example, but you can see how you can tailor this to your own projects and work that you're doing. In terms of biodiversity management, say that as part of our fit growing space, we want to increase the connectivity of green and blue spaces around the area. And then in terms of place regeneration, you want to just increase the cultural value that that space has in that community. So again, you don't need to choose as many categories. It's again tailored to what you want to do. And the kind of similar approach is taken for the rest of the topics. So in health and well-being, say that in the fit growing space that we're creating, we want to improve mental health. And we want to improve physical health because we're hoping that people who will be involved in the growing activities will maybe develop their, they will do more physical exercise, which would be good for them. And maybe you want to improve nutritional habits as well, because people will be more aware of kind of healthy eating habits, etc. So again, I'll leave you to look at all of these in your own time, because it would probably take the full hour for me to go and explain each one of these. We have tried to simplify the wording around these so that it's not very academic and you don't need to be technical to be able to understand these. We're hoping the tool gets used by decision makers across the board, so regardless of their academic or technical experience as well. So the next topic is social cohesion. And again, with our food growing space, we're interested to improve the perceived safety in the area, because maybe we've got some antisocial behavior taking place there, and we want to improve trust within the community as well. So again, loads of options here. Maybe we also want to increase pro-environmental behavior, because it's all about nature-based solutions and having this kind of multi-themed benefits and goals for the project. They're not just environmental or economic or health and well-being or social cohesion. That's something that does all of these things. And the last one is economic. So as part of our fruit growing space, we actually want to maybe upskill people, and we want to make them kind of gain employment. So maybe increase employment in the area by maybe improving their kind of self-confidence and self-esteem, or by giving them skills that would allow them to seek employment. If we were to put some sort of maybe renewable device in place, we might be able to produce some renewable energy and therefore reduce the price of energy in that specific community. So again, say that we want to do that. So you click the ones that are applicable to your needs. And that's where the tool does that first thing, where it basically translates these goals or benefits into the indicators that have been created as part of the Connecting Nature project. So as you can see before, we talked about flood alleviation, reducing flooding in the area. So that's why it's suggesting rainfall storage as one of the indicators here, flood peak reduction, etc. You also have the biodiversity stuff that we looked at before, so species diversity, supporting increasing biodiversity conservation. So there's the environmental ones. Just to clarify as well, as I mentioned before, the indicators are divided between core and feature. This is something that was created as part of Connecting Nature to describe the indicators that were kind of essential to any project, which would be the core indicators that are looking at this kind of topic. And then the feature ones are applicable to projects depending on the scale and type of project that you're looking at as well. So they're not always relevant to what you're trying to do, which is why we give you the option here to say that actually you're not interested in one of these things. So you can tick it off. There's a little bit of an icon here. It's an information icon, and when you click on it, it gives you more information about what that indicator is all about. So after you've read that, if you decide that that's not really relevant to what you're trying to do, You can untick, but you can also tick back things. So as you can see, the indicators are divided between the different categories. So these are all the environmental ones that have come up as part of our environmental benefits. Then you've got health and well-being. So like before, we looked at mental health, enhanced physical activity. A lot of these are quite similar in terms of the naming of the indicators and the benefits. Some of them, however, some more complex ones, and the wording of the indicator is much more scientific, academic, technical, hence why we've tried to kind of simplify things a bit more as part of the benefits section. Social cohesion, and then you've got the economic side of things as well. So that's the first stage of the tool, the CoImpact tool. However, there was a point during our kind of thought process that we realized that because we're looking at nature-based solutions, so whether you call it nature-based solutions or a project that's going to be, you know, what you're already working on, you're trying to improve things for the community across all these themes. You're not just trying to improve the economy or just, you know, make an environmental change. You're also trying to improve the community's health and well-being and social cohesion. So that's when we thought, well, there are actual synergies between indicators, between the different themes as well. So that's when we thought that the tool would be good if it could actually link these different themes together once you've selected something that actually has a synergy. So for example, I would expect that here the water quality indicator that you're getting suggested is because we chose the flooding alleviation benefit. And so it's saying, well, actually, if you want to look at flood alleviation, maybe you want to look at water quality improvement as well. We also chose the improved connectivity between green spaces and blue spaces. And that's why here it's saying, well, maybe you want to look at generally public green space distribution as well. And you will see that's across the different topics as well. So for example, general well-being and happiness is being suggested here. Chronic stress and cardiovascular diseases is also one of the, are also some of the indicators are being suggested here. Some of these are synergies between the same theme, and others are synergies between different themes, which again, you can explore this yourselves whenever you've got time and if you're interested in this. So say that in this stage where, as you can see, you don't actually have any of these selected, pre-selected for you. And that's because we want to make sure that people have the choice to choose the ones that they think are relevant. Again, you've got the information icon here that gives you a bit more information. So say that we're actually really interested in the recreational value of blue and green spaces, and we want to look at carbon sequestration and storage. But we're not really interested in any of the other topics. And again, just to reiterate, we wanted to make sure that this step is here so that no one comes in and just selects, for example, environmental benefits and then does not think about, well, what is the impact on the economy and what is the impact on health and well-being and social cohesion? So this part of the tool will be able to kind of remind you that you've got to think about that multi-themed aspect of things. So we're almost done here. The last bit of the tool is participatory planning and governance indicators. These are very different indicators to what we've seen so far. They're more process oriented. They're more about the kind of relationships and things are happening in the kind of project planning and implementation stage rather than the impact that the project is having on the community. So these are quite popular nowadays, so you might be interested in looking at these. You've got the choice here to continue and select some of these indicators, but if you think that's not relevant to you, then you can say no, I'm not interested, but I'm just going to say yes, and I can show you an example of what these are about. So there's things like diversity of stakeholders involved, there's innovative climate, reflexivity, etc. I think there are topics that require a bit more research to kind of understand what these are about. However, I know Jillian has been quite supportive of these for Glasgow, for example, and I've heard from other colleagues as well that this is something that's quite interesting at the moment. So feel free to select some of these. In this case, I can maybe just choose transparency of co-production and maybe common vision, just so that you can see how this comes up in the end. So that's really it. The only final step that you've got here is you're being asked where your project is based. The reason for this is because of that sign-in function here. We want to see for our own auditing purposes who is using this, but rather instead of who is using it, where people are using it from. As you know, Connecting Nature is a European project, and as such, we would hope that it's across Europe or even the world that people are using this. So in this case, I'm going to write down Glasgow. And that's it. So that's your plan being created here. So I'm just going to download that, and I'm going to explain something very quickly about what it says here. So we have some aspirations at some further stage, depending on funding and resources, to be able specifically for Glasgow, to be able to connect the results of this tool to the open data hub that we have created as part of Glasgow City Council, so that if you are based in Glasgow and you're looking to create a project in Glasgow, you can get the data, anything that's available, of course, directly once this report is created. You can get access to it. Obviously, this would be just for Glasgow, and at the moment we've simply had discussions about this, so nothing is set in stone, but it's something else to look forward to, hopefully. So I'm just going to open the report that has been produced. So this is something that you'll be able to download and have access to indefinitely. Here you've got a bit of a description again of what you've just gone through. There's a statement to say that the CoImpact tool is not to be used for commercial purposes, and that you need to consult us if you want to make any sort of amendments to the tool yourselves. This is a bit where we asked you for the location. And then that's where it actually, that's the important bit. So it tells you, it gives you all these indicators that we selected before. And the most important part is this bit here, which basically opens up another document. So that's per indicator. And it gives you some information about that specific indicator, how you can actually go about and collect this data, analyze things, and make sure that your evidence is solid. So in this case, we're looking at rainfall storage. It's one of the environmental ones. There's a description, there's some methodological approaches here. It gives you some information about the level of expertise required, the cost, effort, and availability of data when you're looking at data collection. And then it goes into geographic and temporal scales and how this may affect your data collection process and the kind of evidence that you get out of it. There's a section on the scientific evidence behind this, and some more kind of methodological approaches here. For the environmental ones, you've got an Earth observation / remote sensing approach to things. And then there's the participatory process, which is more, I guess, involving the community to try and get the data that you need. This bit here, I assume, would be quite useful to some of you, and it's looking at the connection of this specific indicator with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And we think that this would probably be quite useful when people are looking for funding or trying to kind of justify why they're going ahead with this kind of collection process. These fact sheets, we call them fact sheets, have been kindly created by our academic partners across Europe, obviously based on their expertise. And there's a section here on the academic references relating to this specific indicator. So I'm very quickly going to show you as well another set that's not environmental. So the next section should be health and well-being. We seem to have chosen quite a few environmental ones. So the first health and well-being indicator is mental health and well-being. So I'm just going to quickly show you what this looks like. Again, description, you've got level of expertise, data collection, methods, any sort of, suggestion of what kind of survey method you need to employ. So in this case, it's quantitative. And if you go down here, it tells you that the best way is probably a questionnaire. Gives you some more information, again, connection with the UN SDGs. So again, I'm going to leave you to have a look at this yourselves, but it's just to show you that, these kind of fact sheets, they look different depending on the topic that you're looking at because of the kind of different approaches that you've got to measuring things. So one final thing to say here is that in the end of the bit, it gives you a bit more information about the Connecting Nature Impact Assessment Guidebook, which is something that we created as part of Connecting Nature, and it's kind of the really well explained and detailed process of assessing impact. So from baseline to actual, impact assessment once the project is up and running. So feel free to either scan the QR code or click on this link and you'll be redirected to the report. And there's also a bit here that's with relations to the nature-based enterprise platform, which is another result of the Connecting Nature project. In case you're looking for expertise from any sort of consultants potentially about how to go about and do this process, you're welcome to use the platform and kind of network and find people that might be able to help you. So we are aware that this whole process is actually, it doesn't stop the bit where you need a technical person to find the data for you and do the analysis. However, the whole point of this is that it raises awareness and it gets people thinking about impact and the fact that you need to make sure you've got the evidence to back your assumptions rather than the kind of more traditional, methods of having anecdotal evidence that something is working or it's not working. So this allows you to start thinking about that and raises awareness. So this was really the bit that we had to talk to you about ourselves. Sorry, one final thing here to say is that we've got this set of indicators that you probably noticed that we didn't have to choose these. These are primary indicators. Some of our colleagues created these, and these are indicators that in every plan they should be included because they're so essential. They're things like type of interaction, frequency, and duration of interaction with the project. So if you don't know how often, why, and for how long people get involved with your project, or in this case, the food growing space, then you're not really able to assess how the project is impacting the community. And then there's a final bit here that's about perceived quality of space. So this is about how people feel about the quality of the space. So that's pretty much it. So I'm just going to stop sharing my screen and see whether we've got any questions. But thank you for sticking out to it so far, and hopefully this has been useful for everyone. But yeah, okay.
So Rania, if I kind of come on, there's a series of questions in the chat, or Andrew has put a series in. What I would also say is if you want to put your hand up if you have a question, we will be able to see a running order of the questions. If I kind of give you the questions and see, so Andrew has said, what's the difference between core and feature indicators? And then is the intention for the tool to be adopted more widely within GCC or even wider within Glasgow City region. And for the GCC open spaces strategy are the indicators that this study has suggested feasible in terms of cost and practicability. So Andrew, I'm going to take the first two. So this has been designed using our open space strategy as our exemplar. And what we are trying to do is identify the data that we currently have within Glasgow and make that visible. And Rania has done a power of good, pulling a lot of that data already into a dashboard that we have created. There will be some costs in the gaps in that data, and that's conversations that we are having not only across the Glasgow City Council and the city region family of councils, but also with our academic partners. So if we identify a data gap, we've already reached out to SEPA, to Public Health Scotland and others, and where there is open source data that is available, we are pulling that in with the support of our corporate GIS people. The intention is for anybody to use it if you think it's useful. We are looking at what the add-ons are to that. So I have a conversation set up with colleagues in Cali University, for instance, later on next week, I think, to talk about is there add-ons, is there things they can help us to do? But we'll only know what those add-ons are or what the additional benefits people want from it when they start using it. So although it's been designed to be used anywhere in the world, the only little added Glasgow addition is that from a Glasgow perspective, it's pointing you to the data hub, and our GIS people within the corporate unit, if you turned up to them with an impact assessment plan, will go, thank you very much. We'll build you what we can from that now because you've given us the route map to what you want as your starter pack. So from a Glasgow perspective, our GIS people know what that impact assessment plan is because Rania's and our guys in planning have helped develop it, and Kimberly and co within our corporate know what it is, and they will build you your dashboard or database, your baseline based on that impact assessment plan. For other organizations and authorities, I would say take that impact assessment plan and go and speak to your data specialist and say, what can you build me from this? This is giving you a list, which data have we already got? And tell me what the gaps are, and then the impact assessment plan is telling you how to go about filling those gaps, who to talk to, what you're asking them for, what you're asking them to do. And if you need to pay somebody to do it, you've effectively got the brief to send out to say, I want this data set, cost me for it. The final question, Andrew, is what's the difference between core and feature indicators, Rania or David?
Yeah, I mean, we explained that during the demonstration. They're meant to be, the core ones are meant to be the ones that you should probably look at every time based on the benefits that you've put down. However, the feature ones depend on the scale and the type of project that you have. So they're more kind of non-mandatory ones, and you need to use your own discretion for this. I was just going to add onto your second question, Andrew, that, like I said before, we are more than happy for people to develop this further. So if any other organizations are looking to do something more kind of bespoke for their own needs, that's fine with us as long as they get in touch with us. And in terms of the city region and Clyde plan, etc., we have presented CoImpact to quite a few organizations who have been really excited about this and are looking again for ways that they can adopt this themselves. So, and in terms of your question about who will monitor these indicators, that's a good one. Remember that this tool is meant to just raise awareness and make people start thinking about what they need to be monitoring. It doesn't fix the actual technical aspect and the operational aspect where you still need those experts and those data scientists to go collect the data for you, do the analysis, and then keep on monitoring things. So it's quite simple in what it actually provides. It doesn't actually fix the bit where you need to go and find your data and monitor things.
So I'll add to
this answers things.
I'll add to Rania's thing. And I'll use the Glasgow context. If you set up your dashboard with live data, the data will update itself and draw through because that data will always be live. Your question that you are asking the data will change through time. So I often use a question on the open space that we need to provide high quality open space within 200 meters of the 10% most deprived community. So I would tick all the boxes that would tell me I need data on deprived communities, I need data on health and wellbeing, I need data on this. I've got live data from doing that impact assessment. What I'm then doing is asking the same question every 6 months or every year to see how the situation on the ground has changed, and pulling extra data like our development plan data or our vacant derelict land data on top of that. So it still needs the planner or the architect or the engineer or the what to ask the question, but you're not starting from scratch with all your data every time, I think is the way of doing it.
Thanks for that, Jillian. That's great.
Yep.
The next question is from Shauna. She's looking at basically the connection with the Scottish National Performance Framework. So basically the indicators were not set up to link to the National Performance Framework. They were created by academic partners all over Europe. However, there are some indicators that do link up, so they are similar to what the ones that are in the National Performance Framework, but they were not created to link up to start with, if that makes sense. However, that is something we can look into in another version. However, Connecting Nature does end in the end of May, so it's just a question of more resources and funding to expand this further. So the next question, I hope that answered it, Shauna, but let us know if you need any more information. Mamuka, nice to see you. So it's about the commercial side of things, about whether the tool can be used for public authority use, benefit, etc. Yeah, I mean, that's the whole point. We were just trying to make sure that no private companies basically use the tool to make money out of it or to charge their clients for using it, because it's open source and anyone can use it for free. So as long as it's for public benefit and no one is making money out of it, we're happy with that. Catherine, you've put down a comment, sorry. So about gathering case studies. Okay, so is that case studies about how the tool is being used? I assume so, or the kind of impact assessment that you're doing and the results of your impact assessment, Catherine? Okay, well,
You said yes.
Right, so I'll answer both just in case. I'm not sure what the yes is referring to. So in terms of the first bit, hi, Catherine. Great.
Hi, sorry, I'll just clarify. My computer's very slow. Yeah, it would just be interesting to see how this is being applied in practice, just to have something to refer back to and some examples. I think that's really helpful to build that confidence and community of practice.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have not specifically asked for that at this point because we don't want to, we want to just get people using this. However, that would be really useful from our perspective to see how this is being used. So at the moment, we're only looking at locations. So, anyone that uses this tool, where they're using it from. But yeah, any sort of case studies would be really useful for us to be able, especially I think, to get the resources required to advance this further. So if you do use it and you're happy to give us kind of feedback about how it has helped you, then we would be more than happy to receive that. But there's no formal process yet. But it might be a good idea to maybe look at that actually. Thank you, Catherine. Jillian, you've put through.
David put a question higher up, so I think it got missing. And then just for information, I think David Gibson is currently typing in Wingdings. So you've got a question that I've repeated for you from David Hay, and then Julie Proctor has asked something.
Yeah, so Julie, you've asked about temptation to select as many benefits. Absolutely. However, I think potentially selecting too few might be an issue as well. So actually, as part of our process of doing the impact assessment in Glasgow and then trying to show that process to our fast following cities across Europe, this question came up of people saying, well, actually, We would like to select many of these. However, realistically, we're not going to have the data for a lot of these. So maybe it's better to select only the ones that we can actually get data for, which is why we decided to just approach it from a benefit perspective and make sure that you go for the ones that you really think are applicable to your project. And then if your report comes up with, 10 pages worth of indicators and you just think that's impossible, I guess that raises the awareness as well of the fact that maybe you need to concentrate on the ones that are really important for you and they're the major kind of impacts that you're looking to measure. So I wouldn't say that it's better to select only a few. I think you need to just be very mindful of what you want to do, and try to tailor that, tailor your choice based on what you need to achieve.
So the question that David Hay was asking that I repeated was, are we happy for private sector consultants to use the tool if not charging their client for access to the tool, but charging for their time to run the tool or talk them through it?
Again, as long as it's for public benefit and there's no charging as part of it, then yes. I'm not sure about the bit where they're charging for running the tool, because again, it's a public, open source tool, and they probably should not be charging if they're using it. So not sure about that bit.
Do you want to clarify, David?
Yes, thanks, Jillian. I think private sector consultants need to charge for their time, and there would be time in setting up the tool and time involved in collecting the data, etc. And I think it would seem reasonable for them to be able to access the tool for that purpose, because I think, for me, it's the way communities will benefit if the tool is being used, and the quality of our projects within Greater Glasgow will improve if the tool's being used.
So I think, go on, Rania, sorry.
Oh, sorry. I was just quickly going to say, I think for the bit where they're doing the actual data collection analysis, I think that's completely reasonable, and that's not really part of the tool. The tool is just telling you, if you want to measure this is how you do it. So as you saw, it was quite a fast process to just go through the tool and get that final PDF. So the moment you've got the PDF and then you need to do work to actually make that happen, that's obviously completely fine with us to charge for, because that does take a lot of work.
Yeah. So Siobhan's just added up and agreed with what you said, Rania, that it's the added value you can charge from. So that, David, is where I was using as a comparison the Ask Network, that it's the added value. So a consultant sitting down with a client or with you and taking half an hour to go through the tool, they shouldn't be charging for, but the 5 days they might then need to take the impact assessment plan and pull together the data source, they can charge us for, but it will have speeded up. Instead of doing 20 days trying to hunt the data, they're now doing 5 because they've got, so it should save us money in the long run, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks, Siobhan, for that. And thank you, Jillian. Are there any more questions? We've got 10 more minutes. Yeah, Siobhan, that's true. The more people using it, the better. And again, any case studies, like Catherine said before, I'm more than happy to receive them as well.
So I would just say it's the more people that use it. My one tip is, if you're creating more than one impact assessment plan because you've got 2 projects, and then you're in Glasgow, you may in the location bit want to say project number 1 or Pollock Glasgow or something, because the only differentiation between your impact assessment plans that you produce will be the name convention you put at the start. And if you are going to produce 3 or 4 and you're going to save them all as PDFs and you forget to save them as this is for that project or that, you might need that little bit of differentiation. There's another 2 questions just come up while I've been saying that bit, Rania.
Yeah, Deidre, yes, so we're more than happy for any community to use this tool. We have done quite a lot of engagement so far internally and with partner organizations as well to show them the benefit of this tool. And we're hoping that it gets to communities as well, but we haven't planned anything direct at the moment. If you've got any ideas, please get in touch. We would be more than happy to do demonstrations for anyone that wants it. But yeah, happy for anyone to use this. Siobhan, your question is around how we keep the tool updated. Yeah, so as you know yourself, we haven't put any sort of business plan through or anything like that. We're kind of trialing this at the moment and seeing how useful people find it. And then based on that, we'll have to see what kind of resources and funding we have available, right, Jillian, to be able to develop this further and change things as science develops. You have any more comments, Jillian or David, maybe, because this from an academic point of view as well?
I'll just kind of say that from a tool point of view, and Siobhan's kind of being incorporated in the forthcoming community workshop plan, yes, it will be. From a Glasgow perspective, we will be trying to use it as much as possible, not just us within the planning service, but we will be trying to support and help our colleagues throughout Glasgow, the city region and neighbouring authorities across Scotland to use it. So we will be trying to embed it in as many processes as possible. I think Siobhan's heard me say, I think it's a good tool for communities to have a conversation along with the business model canvas, which again, it's tools that were designed for one purpose, but actually they work really, really well as community engagement tools and starting that conversation tool. So yes, we would want to embed it. We would want communities to be saying, what are the outcomes that we want you to deliver for us for this open space or this growing space or this play park or this suds pond or this rain garden or this green roof or whatever. And actually, I kind of think any project that we're doing within Glasgow that you might not think is a nature-based solution should run with this tool, because even if you're building a bridge or a new road, you have outcomes for a community that we now have to measure in the national planning performance, etc. So yeah, it's a good tool to get you thinking about the outcomes. CN, yeah, it's Connecting Nature, which sadly ends at the end of May, although the Connecting Nature theme and branding will continue across the board and lots of things will still be called Connecting Nature. And Siobhan has put up where the links to the tools are. So we'll definitely be landing the tool on our own website, but it will also be available internationally on OPLA's website as well, which and Rani has just put up the link at the moment. Are there any other final questions that anybody has for Rania or David or anybody else? Over to you to close it out, Rania.
Well, David has put a bit more of an information on Connecting Nature in there, so thanks for that, David. Yeah, Siobhan, no shortage of ways to access it. David, you've got a question about whether the tool can be used for any scale. Yeah, that's a very good question, actually. You need to think that when these fact sheets and things were developed, they're not for specific projects, so they had to be as generic as possible to kind of convey the general meaning of how you can do this kind of work. However, you need to look at it from your own perspective in your own project and think how you can adapt this basically to your needs. So yeah, scale would be a very important factor here, because if you're looking at something that's citywide, you would have to approach things differently to if you have to look at it in a very kind of like the food growing space that I was talking about before. So yeah, unfortunately, there was no way to make this different to the different kind of scales, because that would require quite a lot of fact sheets and a lot of work. So again, it's meant to give you more of an understanding and awareness of what you need to do, but then you need to get your technical people to give you more advice about what's required.
I would add to that, Rania, that if you're thinking about scale, then you are thinking about a project at scale. So your answers to the outcomes that you want to deliver will be based on the scale of your project. So I would run the open space strategy, which is at a citywide scale, through CoImpact because it has a number of outcomes, but I would be viewing it through a lens of this is a city scale. But I would equally, if I was looking at a food planting project at the bottom of a street, say, okay, from that really small scale, what are the outcomes I want to deliver? So the person that's asking the outcomes knows the scale, so it therefore can work at any scale and give you a list of outcomes. It then is up to you as the project to say, okay, do I want that data citywide? Do I want it site specific? Do I want it at ward level? And sometimes it's what you can get that data availability at as well. Right, there's a couple of last points coming in and I'll be quiet while you deal with them.
Yeah, there's just a comment from Mamuka here about whether we're going to be publishing a map of the users. I assume a map of where people are using the tool from. That's not really part of the plan, especially because anyone can type whatever they want in the location section. So I'm not sure how accurate that would be. So we're not really planning on doing that. It's again for internal auditing purposes. And as you've noticed, none of the there's no cookies or anything being collected as part of this, and no personal information gets collected either. So it's just based on what people have typed in. And Sandy, yeah, thanks very much. We do think that's probably going to be quite useful for the food growing team. Sandy works for the food growing team within Glasgow City Council. Yeah, I think it would be really useful for Grow Chapel, Bellahouston, any other work that you're doing as well. Which is kind of what we did. I guess we followed that process way before CoImpact was operational for Grow Chapel and Bellahouston, which are two food growing spaces in Glasgow. So yeah, so really glad that you're picking this up. So we only have 3 more minutes. So unless someone has any final comments or questions, we should probably end this. Any final comments or anything? No? Okay.
We have a thank you to everybody that stayed with us, and the majority of you have, and hopefully you found it useful. The link to CoImpact is in the chat, but I think we can send it around to everybody that said they would turn up at this, along with the websites that we know it's going to land on at this stage. The final thing I would say is some of you may be aware, if you're in the Scottish context, that an Urban by Nature hub is being launched in Scotland, and we will reach out to some of you for that launch. And there is also an Urban by Nature hub that launched just before Christmas in Spain. So if there's any Spanish folk on this call and we want more information about that, please contact David, who can put you in contact with the folk that are running that. And thank you for the time, and thank you, David, and thank you, Rania. You've done brilliantly.
Yeah, thanks everyone. This has been great to have you all here. We'll send you all links to the recording if you would like to share it with anyone else. And we're here if you've got any questions or you would like any further demonstrations. So thanks so much, and have a nice morning or afternoon wherever you are. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.